mysterious flash over the Indian Ocean that's never been solved, dozens of ghost ships drifting into Japanese waters full of decaying corpses, one of the most haunted islands in the world, and more. One of the creepiest unsolved mysteries of the ocean is the Vela incident. It was September 22nd of 1979 when a strange, bright flash of light lit up the skies near the Indian Ocean. The flash was detected by an American satellite which was monitoring for nuclear tests. Now, this flash appeared to be from a nuclear explosion, but it didn't come from any country that was openly conducting tests at the time. The location of the flash was near the southern coast of Africa, and it seemed to match the exact area where an unknown ship might have been conducting a secret nuclear test, but no one knew who would have been behind it. Some theories go that it could have been Israel testing a nuclear weapon in secret, or even a rogue South African operation, but no one's ever come out and said anything. Here's the extra eerie part though. Despite what seemed to be a nuclear test, there was no fallout, no debris. It's a very strange case, and most of the details about it seem to be pretty hush-hush. So was it a secret nuclear test, an accident, or something else entirely? The Palmyra Atoll is said to be one of the most eerie remote places on Earth. This tiny island, just 1.5 miles long, was discovered in 1798 by Captain Edward Fanning, who supposedly had a strange feeling about it before even seeing it. Fanning, sailing through the Pacific, was jolted awake 3 times during the night by an intense sense of danger. The final time, he found himself inexplicably dressed and rushing to the deck. His gut feeling led him to stop the ship for the night, and in the morning they saw what he had sensed: deadly reefs lying just ahead. If he'd ignored his instincts, the ship and its crew would have been lost. Since then, Palmyra's become rather infamous for bizarre and tragic events. One of the most disturbing incidents happened in 1974 when a couple, Mac and Muff Graham, arrived on the island for a visit. They were joined by another couple, Buck Walker and his girlfriend Stephanie Stearns, but things quickly turned dark. Walker, a fugitive with a violent past, killed the Grahams for their boat and supplies. According to Stearns, Walker killed them and their bodies were hidden in a metal container. Muff Graham's remains were discovered 6 years later by a couple visiting the island, washed up on the shore. It was found that Muff had been dismembered before being burnt and dumped. Mac's remains, however, were never found. But that's not the only dark thing to have taken place here. Hal Horton, a Navy officer stationed on Palmyra during World War II, spoke openly about the strange and tragic incidents that seemed to plague this island, including aircraft vanishing. Horton was quoted telling of how at least 2 planes were lost in broad daylight, their pilots mysteriously vanishing. He also mentioned the frequent equipment malfunctions that pilots experienced while landing or taking off from the island. According to Horton, these issues were so frequent that sailors and officers stationed there started calling it the Palmyra Curse. Horton described the island as incredibly small, so much so that a plane flying just 10,000 feet above it on a cloudy day might not even spot it. Once we heard a plane overhead, but he crashed in the drink before he could find the runway, Horton said. Tragically, the pilot didn't survive. We didn't get to the poor guy fast enough. Sharks found him first, he added. It didn't seem like it was just all bad luck. There was apparently this sense that something was just off about the place. In 2015, Japan's Coast Guard came across at least 12 wooden boats carrying the decaying bodies of 22 people. Some were nearly skeletons, 2 were even missing heads. The first boat appeared in October, and then more turned up in November. The Japan Coast Guard was left trying to piece together the mystery as to where these boats came from and what had happened to the people on board. The boats looked like they'd come from North Korea. One clue was found on a boat that carried 10 decomposing bodies. The hull had Korean lettering that read North Korea's military. Another clue was a tattered piece of cloth which looked like it could be from a North Korean flag. Some believe these boats were just lost fishing vessels. Others think they might have been used by defectors trying to escape North Korea. The thing is, this isn't an isolated incident. North Korean ghost ships wash up in Japan all the time. Every year, derelict boats from North Korea wash up on Japan's shores. Some with no crew, others others carrying the remains of those lost at sea. Most of these ghost ships seem to be North Korean fishermen who get stranded out at sea, but that doesn't explain every case. In March of 1918, the USS Cyclops, a massive Navy ship nearly 550 feet long, vanished without a trace, leading to one of the biggest mysteries in naval history. The ship, carrying a crew of 306 and tons of manganese ore, was on its way from Brazil to Baltimore. The last message sent was simply, "Weather fair, all well," but the ship was never heard from again. Not even an SOS was received. She just disappeared as though some gigantic monster of the sea had grabbed her, men and all, and sent her into the depths. That's what was written in Santa Fe magazine a couple years after the disappearance. Now, as for what happened, some think maybe a German submarine sank the ship, but no evidence ever turned up to support that. Marvin Barish, whose ancestor was one of the Cyclops' crew, has spent years researching this mystery. He believes mechanical failures combined with the ship's heavy cargo may have caused it to capsize, especially near the Puerto Rico Trench, the deepest part of the Atlantic. He's still hoping that modern technology might one day uncover the wreckage, saying, "I just want her to be found. I want the 309 to be at rest, as well as the families." In 1946, something strange happened over Scandinavia. Reports started flooding in from Sweden, Finland, and Norway about bright, mysterious objects in the sky. Sometimes during the day, and sometimes at night. One report even mentioned a rocket-like object crashing into a lake, but nothing was ever recovered. These sightings became so widespread that the phenomenon was dubbed the Swedish ghost rockets. Some think the objects were Soviet missiles, leftovers from German V-2 rockets. In fact, by 1946, the Soviets had begun their own missile program, testing missiles in the exact region where the ghost rockets were reported. The timing fit perfectly, and for a while, a lot of people believed these rockets were Soviet-made weapons being tested in secret. But it turns out that the Soviets hadn't actually launched any V-2 missiles in 1946. After the war, the Germans' V-2 factories were mostly scavenged by the Allies, and the Soviets were behind in missile development, so while it made sense at the time, we're just not sure if that theory holds up today. As the reports continued to come in, though, back in the day, the press began calling the objects flying bombs. Some even speculated they were alien spacecraft. Eventually, scientists came out saying there was no solid evidence that any missiles had been launched, and said that some of these supposed rockets were probably just shooting stars. But if that were the case, I mean, why was it only happening then? What, I mean, people had never seen a shooting star before? It just seems like a weak explanation to me. Till this day, we still don't know for sure what happened over the Baltic Sea that year. The Michigan Triangle, which makes up this area of the water that you see here, is almost just as strange as the notorious Bermuda Triangle. Over the years, ships, planes, and the people on them have vanished, and many of these cases are still unsolved. One of the earliest incidents dates back to 1679, when the French sailing ship Le Griffon disappeared without a trace after leaving Green Bay. No wreckage has ever been found for that one. Then there's the bizarre case of the Roosevelt, a schooner that capsized twice with no sign of its crew. In 1921, the ship was found overturned, the crew missing. Even more strange, the captain had a premonition before setting sail and had refused to board that day, which ended up saving his life. On April 28, 1937, Captain George R. Donner was in command of a ship traveling from Erie, Pennsylvania to Port Washington, Wisconsin. One night, Donner went back to his cabin after a long shift. His second mate was supposed to wake him once they were at their destination, but when the mate went to check on him a few hours later, Donner was gone, and they searched every inch of that ship, but he was never seen again. The most infamous case was on June 23rd of 1950, though. A flight piloted by Robert C. Lind was en route from New York to Minneapolis when it hit bad weather near Chicago. The plane changed course and headed over Lake Michigan. Around midnight, Lind requested to drop the altitude, but his request was denied, and that was the last communication anyone heard from Flight 2501. It vanished, and its last known position was within the Michigan Triangle. In 2006, a ghost ship was spotted drifting off the coast of Queensland, Australia. The vessel, identified as the Jian Seng, didn't show any signs of a struggle. There was a broken tow rope, but that was about it. A patrol vessel was sent in to investigate, and when they boarded this empty ship, they found it eerily quiet. There were no signs that any violent struggle had happened or anything like that. It was just an empty ship floating along, and it looked like it had been floating for a while because it was completely out of fuel. Stranger though, the origin of the ship has never been found. Nobody knows where it came from or where it was going. It hadn't been registered, and no search had ever been made for it. There was a large amount of rice on the ship though, which has led some to believe that this was a resupply vessel for fishing boats. The Devil's Sea, also known as the Dragon's Triangle, is like the Pacific Ocean's version of the Bermuda Triangle. Located off the coast of Japan, the area has become rather infamous for strange magnetic anomalies, unexplained lights, and of course, unsolved disappearances. Japanese fishing authorities even consider it a dangerous spot. One of the most chilling stories happened in 1952, when Japan sent out a research vessel to investigate the Devil's Sea. The ship and its 31-person crew disappeared without a trace. As for what's really behind it all, you have your standard theories. Aliens, portals to parallel universes. Some scientists think volcanic activity in the region could explain the disappearances, but whatever the cause, it seems like this area gets its name for a very good reason. Flight 19 was a US Navy training flight that disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle on December 5th of 1945. The flight involved 5 TBM Avenger bombers led by Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor, along with 14 crew. They were on a routine training exercise. No one was expecting anything to go wrong, but it did. It began when Lieutenant Taylor's compasses started malfunctioning. After completing their tasks, Taylor and his crew got lost. Radio transmissions showed that Taylor thought he was over the Florida Keys, but his compass was giving false readings. At one point he said, "I am over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys, but I don't know how far down, and I don't know how to get to Fort Lauderdale." As the confusion continued to grow, other pilots in the group said, "Well, why don't we fly west and head back to Florida?" But Taylor insisted on continuing in the wrong direction. By the time they realized something was seriously wrong, they were far out over the Atlantic, with their fuel running low. Taylor radioed, "We are heading 030 degrees for 45 minutes, then we will fly north to make sure we are not over the Gulf of Mexico." But the weather was getting bad, and radio contact started cutting out. Taylor's last message, "All planes close up tight, we'll have to ditch unless landfall," was heard just before they vanished. While all this was happening, another aircraft was sent to search for Flight 19, but it also disappeared. Until this day, there's never been any trace of the missing planes or the crew.
A mysterious object orbiting Earth above our atmosphere, man-made with no earthly origins. It's the Black Knight satellite, an alien surveillance device used to monitor Earth for the past 13,000 years, or so they say. The device was first detected by Nikola Tesla in 1899 and then by Marconi and Jorgen Hals a few years later, and it was confirmed in the early 20th century by amateur radio operators, and it was first reported in the news in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Apparently the satellite is not only a monitoring device deployed by aliens to observe the going-ons of Earth, but supposedly, based on radio signals coming from the contraption, it also contains a map to a faraway planet called Epsilon Bootis. Nice. While some skeptics have claimed the object to be nothing more than just a piece of old space junk, it should be noted that space junk doesn't exhibit many of the properties exhibited by the Black Knight satellite, especially sending out distinguishable and decodable radio signals.
This next question that's probably on your mind is, why is it here? And if you're not so sold on the alien thing, well, where could it be from then? Well, there are tons of possibilities, from something as boring as space junk, which is what NASA claims, to more outlandish but interesting ideas like a time capsule from the future. This idea is very Star Trek-y, but let's just imagine, if you will, for a moment that our future selves, hundreds or even thousands of years from now, have figured out how to send messages or artifacts back in time. Well, maybe the Black Knight satellite is one of these time capsules. Perhaps it could be carrying important info or advanced technology that could help us in the very near future. Maybe it has the solution to climate change, or a cure for some major disease that's coming in the very near future, or new energy sources. If we could crack the code, who knows how much it could boost our progress. What if the satellite is more like a history book, preserving our achievements and mistakes for future generations? This way, even if a disaster strikes, our story wouldn't be lost forever. The idea is kinda like sending a message in a bottle, of course just way more high tech. And yeah, there's no real proof of this, but if things did get crappy enough in the distant future that we decided we needed to change the course of history, I mean, why wouldn't we try to send some kind of signal back in time if we had the ability to do so?
As I mentioned, the object was first discovered by Nikola Tesla, the inventor of the Tesla coil, in 1899 in Colorado Springs. Tesla had built a large tower to see if he could detect any going-ons in the atmosphere, and he did. Kind of. When the tower first began receiving transmissions, composed of numbers at regular intervals, he assumed that they were coming from the atmosphere, but it didn't take him long to realize that they were actually coming from above our atmosphere in space. He was quoted in a local paper saying, "I believe numbers are being used for communication because numbers are universal." A few years later, Marconi, the inventor of the wireless radio, intercepted the same signals, and a few years after that, a Norwegian engineer observed something as well. Jorgen Hals noticed that the transmissions coming from the object, sent out on a certain wavelength, were somehow being sent back to where they originated from a few seconds later, which isn't that weird. I mean, radio echoes aren't unheard of, but what was weird was the timing. You see, generally radio echoes are consistent and take place just a few seconds after the original signal hits its destination, but these ones were different. They were inconsistent, and some took up to 15 seconds to bounce back. The signals became known as long delayed echoes, or LDE, a phenomenon observed many times over the years that is still yet to be explained.
So in 1973, Scottish researcher and author Duncan Lunnon claimed to have discovered messages from a supposed alien probe. Lunnon analyzed those long-delayed radio echoes, which are strange signals bouncing back to Earth with that delay, and he thought these echoes contained a hidden message from an extraterrestrial probe orbiting Earth, the Black Knight. Lunnon's theory was that the satellite was sending a star map, pinpointing the Epsilon Bootis star system, and according to him, this message was from an alien civilization trying to communicate with us. According to him, the message went as follows. Start here. Our home is in Epsilon Bootis, which is a double star. We live on the 6th planet of 7, coming from the Sun, which is the larger of the two. Our 6th planet has 1 moon. Our 4th planet has 3. Our 1st and 3rd planets each have 1. Our probe is in the position of Arcturus, known in our maps.
So, a couple of guys found some irregular radio signals coming from space. So what? Well, this what? On May 14th of 1954, 3 years prior to Sputnik becoming the first satellite in orbit, newspapers received a story from Major Donald Keyhole, a Marine Corps major, naval aviator, and future founder of the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomenon, or NICAP. Kehoe told the papers that there were already 1 or possibly even 2 non-organic satellites already orbiting Earth. After the story broke, a group of government scientists began attempting to track the objects, when they came across radio signals that matched the description of the ones Tesla had found back in 1899. After that, NASA located the signal and France confirmed it. Years later, after Sputnik's deployment, the US began to worry if the signals might have been coming from a Russian spy satellite, but in 1957 that theory was disproved when a researcher from Venezuela noticed a mysterious object while observing Sputnik in its prograde orbit, west to east, along with the rotation of the Earth. This object was orbiting in retrograde, east to west, opposite the rotation of the Earth, which was technology that hadn't been invented yet, leading them to believe it must not have been made on Earth.
So this is said to be the first photographic evidence of the Black Knight, captured in 1998 during the STS-88 mission. It's a pretty fantastic image, not just because it's breathtaking, which it absolutely is, but because of how clear it is. There's an object floating through space here, clear as day. STS-88 was NASA's first space shuttle mission to the International Space Station. During the mission, astronauts aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour captured a series of photographs that some believe show the mysterious Black Knight satellite. Now, a lot of people were very excited when these photos were released. Just what the hell was this thing? Were we really looking at a genuine UFO? Well, NASA kinda crashed the party. They just said the object was a thermal blanket that had come loose during a spacewalk, and sure, this was a letdown to some. To others, it didn't change anything. To people who believe in the satellite's mysterious origins, the thermal blanket story is just another cover-up.
Here's another. Of course, when it comes to the subject of an alien satellite that the general public has not yet been made explicitly aware of, there is obviously going to be a number of cover-ups involved. In this case, the cover-up of the research conducted by and presented to the Observatory of Paris by Jacques Vallée, who is still alive today and still incredibly passionate about the subject of the Black Knight satellite. Over the course of his career, Jacques observed, tracked, photographed, and even filmed the massive 15-ton satellite that, at the time, no rocket on Earth would have been able to deploy. When he was satisfied with the amount of evidence he had gathered, he presented his findings to the observatory for publishing. In response to his presentation, the observatory promptly confiscated his files, erased all of his photos, and destroyed his tapes. Their reason? They were embarrassed because they could not definitively say what the object was, nor could they source its exact origin. I smell BS.
That was me, by the way. I gotta hit the bathroom after this. So dumb. What if the Black Knight isn't from the future at all, but the exact opposite, the distant past, launched by our ancient ancestors using advanced technology, a lost civilization like Atlantis or some other unknown empire that had tech as good as or even better than ours? They might have sent the object up for all sorts of reasons, but the one that's most intriguing to me is that the Black Knight satellite could be a sort of time capsule containing sacred artifacts or even DNA from a highly advanced ancient civilization that knew it was on the decline. Or maybe they encoded messages in it to warn future generations about their mistakes to prevent suffering the same fate down the line. Yeah, I get it. Sounds like a great plot for a movie, but completely improbable. Improbable, sure, but not impossible. History may have many more secrets than we know.
If you're still not convinced about the existence of the Black Knight satellite, you should know that in 1963, an Air Force test and fighter pilot and astronaut, along with NASA ground crew and tracking stations, actually saw, documented, and reported it during a space mission, only to quickly rescind the claim and instead cover up the fact that the object ever existed. In 1963, Gordon Cooper, an experienced pilot, became one of the first astronauts to go to space. In April of that year, he boarded the Mercury 9, and shortly after, he was living his anti-gravity dreams over 6,214 miles above the Earth's surface. During his descent back down to Earth, the landing module suffered from a total systems failure, but luckily, Gordon was able to land the spacecraft manually just 4 miles off target. That's pretty impressive. But believe it or not, that was not actually the most interesting thing to happen on the mission. While in space, Gordon had seen a green glowing object that ground crew and tracking stations confirmed. Not only that, but the object appeared to have been orbiting the Earth in retrograde, east to west. Unheard of technology at the time. NBC News picked up the story, but by the time Gordon made it back to Earth, the press was restricted from asking any questions about what he had seen, and NASA had released a statement claiming that an electrical malfunction had caused high levels of carbon dioxide in the ship's compartment, and that Gordon had hallucinated the whole thing. For years, Cooper went along with the narrative, that is, until he retired and decided to spill the tea. He claimed that what he and the ground crew saw during the Mercury 9 mission was in fact real, and not only that, but during his time working for the Air Force, he had witnessed hundreds of saucer-shaped spacecrafts being tested on military bases. I guess loyalty to liars in government can only last for so long.
Now, I'm sure we'd all love to believe that the Black Knight is something cool, like an object sent from the future or an alien probe as discussed before, or even a mundane thing like a piece of space junk if you're more nervous about that sort of thing. But could there be something more nefarious going on? Always, right? Maybe it's part of some secret government project. I mean, think about it. During the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union were in a high-stakes race for technological and military superiority. It's entirely possible that one of these countries, or even another government, could have launched a covert satellite. And yes, as Hannah mentioned, it was supposedly first spotted long before the Cold War, but most of the attention to the Black Knight came in the 50s and 60s, so who knows if something else had been detected in the years prior. If the Black Knight is a government project, it could be used for all sorts of secret missions. It might be collecting intelligence, it could be monitoring communications, or even conducting space experiments that the public doesn't know about. Governments often keep advanced technology under wraps, and the Black Knight could be one of these hidden tools. This idea is definitely a much more down-to-earth explanation compared to time capsules or ancient tech, so I mean, who knows? Aside from space junk, this may be the next most possible explanation. Kick things off with the modern mystery school, which sounds very enticing. It's very like Hogwartsy. Anyway, it's a group that Miley Cyrus allegedly belongs to, so not a whole lot is known about this group unless you're in it, of course. But apparently a bunch of Miley Cyrus fans are a bit concerned for her. Apparently the group trains healing practitioners in the tradition of the lineage of King Solomon, whatever that means, and allegedly there are sacrifices that members are sworn never to talk about. I checked out the Modern Mystery School website, and yeah, seems pretty cultish to me. Now, there is quote-unquote info on the site, but it's all like so hard to like transcribe. It's very like esoteric, all this spiritual enlightenment jargon that's hard to make any sense of. But when I read stuff like this, the Modern Mystery School is in service to all of humanity to assist in the ascension of the human consciousness on this planet. This is a mission the school and its lineage holders have been working towards for over 3,000 years. The purpose of the school is to help people achieve their highest spiritual potential in this physical life, while living a life of joy, fulfillment, and love. Just like with every cult, there are steps of initiation apparently as well. Here's what it says on a section of the website called The Path. At every step along the path of initiation, you will find processes, procedures, and policies that are adhered to. With further levels of dedication and higher levels of certification, the policies expand to reflect the nature, responsibilities, and commitment that correspond to the particular step. These processes, procedures, and policies include, but are not limited to, intake and disclaimer forms, informed consent agreements, practitioner code of ethics, non-disclosure / non-compete agreements, decorum, and dress code. Yeah, all very strange. And when I see images of like people like holding up swords and these weird rituals, there's stuff like that on the site, I'm like, yeah, it is a cult. Next up, we have a mysterious group called the Big House Family. Hard to find any info on them other than from things that actress Bethany Joy Lenz has said about them. She was apparently part of the group for 10 years. She's described it as a cult, literally being quoted saying, "I was in a cult for 10 years." She wrote a memoir called Dinner for Vampires, where there's apparently more information about her experience. To put it simply though, Bethany had found a Bible study group along with other Hollywood folks. The group was called the Big House Family. Members felt that they'd found a place of belonging, but things turned dark. The group showed itself to be manipulative, using fear and punishment to control the members. She talked about her family and friends trying to convince her to leave the group, saying, "For a while, they were all trying to save me and rescue me," which is lovely and so amazing to be cared about in that way, but I was very stubborn. I was really committed to what I believed were the best choices I could make. The nature of a group like that is isolation. They have to make you distrust everyone around you so that the only people you trust are, first and foremost, the leadership, and then people within the group, if the leadership approves of them, and isn't in the middle of pitting you against each other, which happens all the time also. Next, we have a weird group Michelle Pfeiffer used to be a part of. This group believed in a pseudo-scientific practice called breatharianism, which is the belief that you don't need food to survive. Some even go as far as saying you don't need water either. According to these people, the sun is all we need to survive and gain our nourishment from. And shocker, but people have died practicing this. Well, I never knew Michelle Pfeiffer was such an idiot. I mean, I don't know. What am I supposed to say to this? I don't. She's dumb. So is everyone who believes in this. No gray areas in this situation here. I try to give people leeway as much as I can. Like, I know how manipulative groups like this can be, but no. I take a stand here. I gotta draw the line somewhere, folks. This is a message to every idiot who practices breatharianism. Aside from the incredibly obvious fact that we do need water and food to survive, maybe, I don't know, you think you're plants somehow? Even then, though, do you know what happens to plants when they don't get water? Are you aware of droughts? I've heard a lot of really idiotic things in my life, but I think this one takes the cake. Patricia and David Arquette were raised in a group called Skymont Sabad. David Arquette was actually born into it. Their family lived on a commune for about 4 years. Sabad is a spiritual movement that began in Indonesia in the 20s. From the looks of it, whatever sect or whatever you'd call it that they were involved in may not actually fall under the cult category. It's hard to say. Again, not a whole lot of info on this specific group either, but whenever I hear about people living on a commune, like doing hippie stuff in a field somewhere, I don't know, it just feels cultish to me. And apparently they didn't have access to bathrooms or electricity, so there's that. The Organite Society. Couldn't find much on this group other than their Instagram, with a description reading, "We are a secret society of individuals who create and place Organite to balance Gaia's energies." Puke. So, what celebs have been linked to this group? Well, Will Smith's weirdo kids, of course, Jaden and Willow Smith, and Kylie Jenner, who apparently used to date Jaden Smith. So the dots are connecting. So what the hell is Organite? What is Organite reminding me of, by the way? Organite. I think it's the Gorgonites from Small Soldiers. Great movie, if you haven't checked it out. I'm probably going to watch that later. Anyway, Organite, it's a pseudoscientific form of energy that's sometimes also referred to as life force. I could try to translate all the pointless drivel that I read about how Organite heals and rejuvenates your alignment or whatever the hell and connects you with the universe, but I'd rather not, because I don't feel like slamming my head against these lights above me here. This is all nonsense. Moving on. Children of God. Oh boy, we've talked about this one before. This is genuinely a full-on cult. Joaquin and River Phoenix, along with the rest of their siblings, were unfortunate enough to be involved in this disgusting cult when they were young. To make it clear though, they were too young to be there of their own volition. They didn't know what was really going on, and apparently their parents didn't either. To quote Joaquin Phoenix, "I think my parents thought they'd found a community that shared their ideals. Cults rarely advertise themselves as such. It's usually someone saying, we're like-minded people, this is a community. But I think the moment my parents realized there was something more to it, they got out," end quote. And thank God they did, because what went on in this cult is so messed up, I can't really go into detail about it here on YouTube. So we'll use a quote from another celeb, Ross McGowan, who was also very young when she was caught up with Children of God. So to quote her, "I remember watching how the cult's men were with women. And at a very young age, and at a very early age, I decided I did not want to be like those women. My dad and I escaped with my dad's other wife in the middle of the night. I remember running through a cornfield in thunder and lightning, holding my dad's hand and running as fast as I could to keep up with him. The cult sent people to find us. I remember a man trying to break in with a hammer." Next we have Glenn Close, whose family entered the movement of moral rearmament when she was young. Her formative years were pretty challenging because of it. In an interview with Hollywood Reporter, Close described moral rearmament as a group that, quote, "basically dictates how you're supposed to live and what you're supposed to say and how you're supposed to feel. You basically weren't allowed to do anything, or you were made to feel guilty about any unnatural desire." Her time in the cult left such an impact on her that she'd often use her experiences to conjure up all the heavy emotions that she needed when acting in movies later on. The list of celebrities who are or were involved in the Church of Scientology is massive. Tom Cruise, probably the most well-known, of course, but even people you wouldn't ever think of. There were even rumors about Jerry Seinfeld. Now, he was never actually a Scientologist. According to him, he just found it, quote, fascinating, but he never actually pursued it. Anyone who's going to comment, by the way, saying Scientology is not a cult, I don't know. I don't know what your definition of a cult is, but if Scientology isn't a cult, I don't know what is. There are loads of testimonies from people who were in deep with the group and got out only to be harassed to the point of having their lives threatened. You gotta pay all this money to ascend through the ranks. There's all this secrecy behind what really goes on. It's incredibly creepy. It's just a bigger group than a lot of your typical cults that you hear about, and it markets itself as a religion. Believe what you want, but if you think Scientology is any more legitimate than Heaven's Gate, just re-examine. There's just more money behind Scientology, so it seems more legitimate at face value, I guess. But L. Ron Hubbard was a complete wacko. Like, he wrote dollar bin sci-fi and fantasy novels for years before founding Scientology. Big imagination, for sure, but that's kind of my whole point. Like, this is not a religion. It's just a fantasy that he concocted to make money. Next up, we have the infamous yet incredibly mysterious Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove is a secretive campground in California where influential figures like politicians, business tycoons, celebs, of course, gather on an annual basis for a retreat. And what goes on there, we don't know, and they want to keep it that way. One of the most common conspiracy theories is that Bohemian Grove is where the world's elite meet to make all these big decisions away from the public eye. Some even think there could be creepy ritualistic sacrifices going on, or they might just want to hang out without the threat of creepy stalkers rolling up and getting in the way of their camping retreat. Who really knows? All we know is that security around Bohemian Grove is locked down incredibly tight. And finally, we have NXIVM. Allison Mack is probably the most publicly well-known celebrity to have been involved in a cult because she really was involved. She wasn't just some innocent young person who was born into it. She didn't just get caught up in some weird practices and then, decided to leave when things started getting fishy. Like, no, she was very much a part of the bad stuff. NXIVM promised personal and professional development through workshops and courses. The group's leader, Keith Raniere, presented himself as a guru-like figure preaching about empowerment and enlightenment. But of course, behind the scenes, NXIVM operated more like a pyramid scheme, with members pressured to recruit others and pay hefty fees for courses that promised to unlock their full potential. And things were even darker than that. There was a subgroup where women were coerced into basically becoming slaves who were branded with Raniere's initials. And Allison Mack from Smallville became a high-ranking member of the organization and was deeply involved in recruiting and coercing women into this subgroup.
Off our list today, we have the mystery of the color-changing Alaskan rivers. In recent years, scientists have found themselves bewildered by the changes in their waterways, including the 451 kilometers 280 miles of the monumental Kobuk River twists and turns through the northwest Alaska. Scrambling to figure out just what the heck is going on and why not only have these waters started to turn orange, but why they have also experienced an extreme increase in acidity, the United States Geological Survey partnered with the National Park Service and the University of California, Davis and the University of Alaska, Anchorage, and Public Pacific University together have set out to map the extent of the contamination as well as its impact on the ecosystem and the cause of it all. While the large group of scientists found their work to be inconclusive, they did come up with a few good theories. The first being that rising temperatures in the Arctic, which has been warming at an alarming rate of almost 4 times faster than the rest of the world, has caused permafrost to begin to thaw in certain areas of the state, releasing iron that had previously been held within the ice. Another theory suggests that not only was the color change due to excess levels of iron, but also the presence of bacteria, reducing the oxidized iron into the soil, which upon contact with the oxygenated water turned a vibrant shade of orange and raised acidity levels to rival those of actual orange juice. Next up we have vampire fish rain. It's like that song Acid Rain, but instead of acid rain it's vampire fish falling from the sky. Now if you're starting to think I've lost my mind, let me explain. The sea lamprey, commonly referred to as the vampire fish, has been around since at least the 1800s, which is when it was first discovered. The jawless fish, which can grow up to 15 inches long, earned its nickname due to the fact that its mouth, which is ringed with many rows of sharp teeth, works as a suction cup, which allows it to attach and suck the blood of its prey along with other bodily fluids. So now that we know what they are, let's just imagine what would happen if they started falling from the sky in our lawns, roadways, parking lots, beaches, and more. Well, the people of Fairbanks, Alaska don't have to imagine, as in 2015, it actually happened. Over the span of about a week, the Alaskan Department of Fish and Game received several calls from the residents of the town claiming to have found the fish popping up in the most unlikely places. Now, some people have claimed this was due to seagulls scooping them up from the fresh waters and dropping them on land, but like there were a lot. And besides, vampire fish rain sounds way cooler anyways. Kushtaka is next on our list, also known as the Land Otter Man. The creature, which many locals claim to have seen, is said to be a mythical shape-shifting being that has commonly been referred to in the legends told by the Tlingit peoples of the Pacific Northwest coast on North America. In some of the legends told, Kushtakas are described as monsters, cruel creatures who drag sailors to their deaths. However, other stories have depicted them as friendly and helping, with some even claiming that the creatures have often saved humans by freezing to death in the cold Alaskan climate. So it's a bit of a toss-up on this one. Are they good or are they bad? And are they even real? I'll leave that up to you guys to figure out. Coming up next, we have the Slide Cemetery, located in the Klondike Gold Rush National Park. It was a dark day when scientists discovered the graves of an estimated 48 to 100 people, it's unknown as the records weren't so great back then, who perished in what is now described as the darkest day in the Klondike Gold Rush history. On April 3rd of 1898, many Alaskan people took to the Chilkoot Trail in an effort to quickly reach the Klondike goldfields, but unfortunately a large number of them never made it to the intended destination. It seems the deceased, filled with dreams of collecting riches, failed to heed the many warnings of weather concerns in the area, and as the aspiring gold collectors made their way up the steep trails, the wet spring weather and loose dirt and rock caused a 10-acre avalanche, ending the lives of many and turning what was once a booming gold town into a desolate and melancholy area of mourning. The cemetery stands today as a reminder of this dark day in history. Up next, we have Lady of the Lake, the discovery of which left scientists and historians baffled and disturbed. So if you're picturing some ghostly woman standing at the edge of the water with decrepit skin and strangly hair, whose presence is depicted in horror stories and folklore, well, you'd be wrong. The Lady of the Lake is actually an abandoned WB-29 bomber aircraft, tail number 44-62214. The aircraft, which flew in the 1940s during World War II, was used to detect evidence of nuclear testing from the Soviet Union while flying back and forth between Alaska and Japan. Makes sense, but what doesn't is how the aircraft ended up in the lake. Its first confirmed appearance in its final watery resting place was in 1964, but whether or not it crashed there, which it does not appear to have done so, or if it was placed there, there are absolutely no records, so it just really remains a mystery. Next, we have the possible discovery of a supervolcano hiding just beneath the surface of the Alaskan islands. The question of the volcano's existence first arose on December 7th of 2022 when John Power, a geophysicist at the United States Geological Survey's Alaska Volcano Observatory, presented a study that showcased a wide crater with arc-shaped ridges and around a 426-foot depth, 130-meter hollow entryway, presumably the tip of the supervolcano, and he presented it to his peers at the American Geophysical Union. While the discovery has yet to be confirmed, there is a mountain of evidence to support the existence of the mega underwater volcano. Geographical data, as well as data collection from seismometers used to record micro-earthquakes around the islands, point heavily to the confirmation of the volcano's presence. At this point in time, scientists are determined to confirm what exactly lies beneath the surface of these waters around the Alaskan islands as quickly as they can, because with the discovery of the possible volcano being so new, we have little to no information on whether or not this thing could blow at any time. And up next, we have another possible appearance and swift disappearance of underground pyramids hidden within the earth of the Alaskan Triangle. The discovery was made after a United States Senator, Hale Boggs, along with his pilot, Nick Begich, were flying over a part of Alaska commonly referred to as the Alaskan Triangle, known for its strange energy and high disappearance rate. As you might have guessed, both Senator and pilot disappeared, but that's not even the weirdest part. A survey of the area took place in an attempt to locate the missing persons, but instead found evidence of a pyramid-shaped major underground structure. However, when they went back to confirm their discovery, it was as though the pyramid had completely disappeared. There are many theories about the commonly referred to Dark Pyramid, the most popular being that it is an alien pyramid, heavily guarded by the United States government, and some people even believing that the pyramid has special powers, such as the ability to generate enough electricity to power all of Canada. But what do you guys think it is? Let me know in the comments, because I really love a good conspiracy theory. And starting off our top 3, we have disappearances in the Alaskan Triangle, which of course was briefly mentioned in our last point, but let's dive a little bit deeper, because since 1988 there has actually been a recorded total of 16,000 disappearances in the area that lies between the lines of Anchorage, Juneau, and Utqiagvik. Of course, Boggs and Begich being among the missing. No one can figure out why this specific area has caused so much confusion and turmoil. Of course, there are many theories, the presence of the Dark Pyramid being one of them, rough terrain being another, and possible magnetic disturbances as well. But the crazy part is that it's not just planes that disappear when entering this particular triangle-shaped portion of Alaska. Reports of alleged kidnappings, getting lost in the woods, sudden vanishings, and being buried by snow are by no means of short supply. Scientists still can't seem to figure out what it is about this specific area that makes planes and people act so out of whack. Next, we have the petroglyph rocks found amongst the shores of Wrangell, an island town in part of Alaska's Inside Passage. For those wondering, a petroglyph is basically just a picture carved into a stone used to represent stories and knowledge, and if you'd like to see one, well, Alaska's got a bunch. While scientists argue over the purpose of the rocks, they have agreed that they were most likely created anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 years ago, most likely by the native peoples that resided there at the time. But seeing as the depictions carved into some of the massive stones very closely mirror images of crop circles and other alien symbols, along with the fact that even after thousands of years the markings still remain so deep within the rock, the theory of the petroglyphs occurrence being a result of extraterrestrial artwork can't be ruled out. Not to mention, Alaska is also home to a giant underground pyramid, I'm just saying. And coming in at our number 1 spot, we have the golden egg. Okay, this one is super cool to me because it was found in the ocean, and I'm always on the lookout for new aquatic discoveries, which, by the way, if you've seen any recently, please let me know in the comments. But anyways, the flesh-like golden egg was recently discovered in August 30th of 2023, and this thing is weird. Found in the depths of the Alaskan seafloor, marine scientists are absolutely stumped as to what this thing could be, but many have speculated that it is most likely the egg casing of a new, unknown creature. On a live stream, one of the scientists noted that the egg had a hole in it, saying that meant something had either tried to get in or out. Another one of the marine spectators noted that when our collective knowledge can't identify it, it's something weird, adding, what kind of animal could make an egg casing like that? The team of researchers was able to successfully collect the intriguing item from the seafloor and bring it to the surface, and have so far confirmed that the golden flesh-like egg is in fact of biological origin, meaning it's not just some prop or piece of trash, but they have yet to truly identify the strange discovery.
Starting off this list at our number 10 spot, we have Magnetic Hill. This is a location in India that has a legend surrounding it that suggests there is a magnetic force that pulls at a speed of around 20 kilometers per hour. I guess Rather than a place where gravity doesn't exist, this one is like a place where there is just too much of it. This means that if you were to park your car but put it in neutral, while on most other hills you would most certainly roll down, on this hill your car will simply stay put, or maybe even find itself rolling uphill. This doesn't just affect things on the ground, however, it also affects those flying through the sky. It is said that flying over this area is troublesome for planes as well, and that they have to adjust certain things like their speed in order to try and balance out the oddities of the area. In our number 9 spot today we have the mystery spot. This mysterious location finds its home in Santa Cruz, California, and it was first discovered to be a place of interest in 1939. It is said that while searching this place they felt some sort of different forces at work. The spot is about 150 square feet inside of a circular area, and it is said that the reason for the strange occurrences here is some sort of change in the magnetic field. It is said that at this mystery spot you can see water flowing upwards, balls rolling uphill, and people can lean further over than normal without falling down. There are many theories as to how this spot became what it is, and they range quite a bit. Some people swear it's just all an optical illusion, while others are certain that it's a result of a meteor that fell to Earth long ago, and it created some sort of magic circle. In our number 8 spot today we have the reverse waterfall. This mysterious and strange location is another one that comes from India. Here there is a waterfall, but it's got a catch. While we all of course expect to see water cascading down when we think of a waterfall, this strange location instead sees the water moving towards the sky. Some people believe it's because of some anti-gravitational force, others think it's due to heavy air pressure, and I'm not a scientist, so I'll let you decide on this one. While this certainly is quite a strange place, it also definitely delivers when it comes to beauty. I think even if the water flowed down like a normal waterfall, this area would still see a lot of tourists just because of the immense natural beauty. In our number 7 spot today we have the St. Ignace mystery spot. For this spot, let's start off with the story behind it. Legend goes that in the 1950s, some surveyors were exploring through Michigan's Upper Peninsula when one day it was realized that none of their equipment was working as it normally should. They of course began doing some troubleshooting and testing, and it was then discovered that these tools were only acting up in a circle that was about 300 feet in diameter, and thus this mystery spot was now discovered. This spot is now visited very often as it has become quite the attraction for tourists who want to see the place where, quote, gravity does strange things. It is said that at this mystery spot, tall people appear short, and sometimes if a person stays for too long, they might even start to feel a little bit queasy or lightheaded, so visitors beware. In our number 6 spot today we have the Australian Magnetic Hill. Over in Australia, we of course have another magnetic hill. This one is sitting a few hours northeast of Adelaide. As you near the area, you will see a gigantic sculpture of a magnet, and that is definitely how you can tell that you were in the right place. Through some sort of combination of topographic anomalies, this hill has some strange occurrences. Of course, like other magnetic hills, when you park your car in neutral, you expect and assume it will roll backwards, but here the car will, or at least it appears to, roll upwards instead. It is also said that not only does the car seemingly climb, but it also gains speed as it does. At the end of the day, despite what it may seem like, this is mostly just an optical illusion rather than some sort of strange force. In our number 5 spot today we have Cosmo's Mystery Area. This location is another one of those popular tourist attractions due to the unusual things that can be seen here. Apparently the trees bow in weird angles, which is one of the reasons this area was discovered, but it doesn't stop at that. When playing a game of catch, well, things aren't quite as simple as they are in most other places. Here the ball is likely to go off course in ways you wouldn't expect. It is also another one of those places where you can find yourself leaning over a lot further without falling than you normally would be able to. We're talking like the gravity-defying Michael Jackson lean. While everywhere else that is quite the feat, here at the mystery area, it's all just a part of the attraction. In our number 4 spot today we have Spook Hill. This hill is located in Florida, and it is said to be another one of the anomalies where gravity just doesn't seem to work correctly. It is said that the name of this place comes from a time when the indigenous people to the land were being removed by settlers. Here, while those who already knew the land were likely accustomed to the oddities, those who were newly settling and stealing the territory were confused by it. This is because as they were riding horses, they noticed that the horses were having a harder time going downhill than uphill, which of course would be different from the norm. This is what led to the nicknaming of this spot as Spook Hill, and ever since then it has been baffling people ever since. In our number 3 spot today we have Mount Aragats. This location is only about 30 kilometers away from the border of Turkey, and it has become quite a popular tourist attraction. Cars can go up parts of the mountain without using their engines, rivers are seen flowing against against the pull of gravity. It's a strange place, and it's got a legend to match. According to ancient legend, this mountain and Mount Ararat, which is a dormant volcano, are said to have been sisters who were separated after a fight. Currently, the mountains are now even separated politically. This has led to a strong love between the mountains, and in their efforts to reconnect, we experience these strange gravitational phenomena. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Inverted Falls. On the island of Suvura, which sits in the southern part of the Faroe Islands, residents experienced a very strange phenomena that they called the inverted waterfall. Basically, like the reverse waterfall, people experienced water spraying upwards instead of flowing downwards. According to weather experts, this was a result of a spiral column of air rotating up, sort of like a tornado. The edge of the cliff only helps to create a stronger rotation, which then sees a funnel of wind and water that appears to be rising and spraying upwards. Once we look at the science, of course, this isn't a case of zero gravity, but it certainly is quite a fantastic weather phenomenon. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Golden Boulder. This rock, or really boulder, truly does look like it could fall at any second. But here's the thing. It's been sitting there for 2,500 years. On top of the boulder sits a pagoda, and while the boulder itself is said to be a naturally occurring formation, it is sitting on top of a natural rock platform. This is certainly a precarious situation, as on the side of the rock formation there is a vertical drop into the valley below. I mean, it seems like a terrifying situation, and somehow this rock just remains. There is of course a legend that goes hand in hand with this location and how the rock seemingly defies gravity, and that legend suggests that the reason this rock sits in place so well is because it is being held by a strand of the Buddha's hair. This boulder really isn't fixed in place, it just happens to remain there without any support, which really is pretty astounding. It is believed that this boulder can only be moved by the touch of a woman, which is the reason that women aren't allowed to touch the rock.
And we're gonna start off with a story posted by Reddit user Netcats1. They had become interested in the dark web mystery box trend and decided to give it a try themselves. They ended up regretting it. A box arrived on their doorstep. Box contained several envelopes. They opened the first envelope, revealing a collection of photographs capturing various destinations around the world. The thing is though, to their shock, they began to realize that the pictures were taken of places they had gone on vacation with their family. The following envelope held pictures of their house, meticulously capturing every angle, including glimpses of the interior through their windows. To their horror, the subsequent set of images portrayed the inside of their home, featuring family members engaged in everyday activities. However, the most disturbing photograph awaited in the final envelope, an unsettling selfie of a masked figure standing beside them sleeping in bed. Overwhelmed, countless questions flooded their mind and their anxiety escalated. Nevertheless, their curiosity persisted in compelling them to open the remaining small box. What they found inside nearly caused them to pass out. It was a collection of dog bones, recognizable by the collar as belonging to their beloved pet Charlie, who had passed away 3 years prior and was buried in the backyard. Is this story true? Probably not, but it's still a creepy story. Next up, we have a mystery box unboxing gone wrong. Mindseed TV, who makes a lot of these videos, shared a video on their YouTube channel of a rather disturbing unboxing. And apparently they ended up handing over all this stuff to the police, so if that's true, it's pretty scary. The box was sent to them unexpectedly, and the uploader believed it was sent by the same individual who he had purchased a mystery box from over a year prior. The stuff they pull out gets worse and worse as the video goes on. Starts getting real unsettling though when they pull out a pair of kids' shoes. Take a look at that. Yeah, not something you want to get in a box unless you're, intentionally buying them for your kid. They also received a case containing several surgical tools, a meat grinder, and most disturbingly, they unwrap a ceramic container shaped like a heart, and when they opened it up, they find what looks to be a set of human teeth. Yeah, pretty disturbing, if it's real anyway. At number 8, we have an unboxing from the YouTube channel Luxury Dark. Now, just for starters, I like these guys. Whether what they have in this box is real or not, or was sent by some mysterious person or not, the video is presented really well. I find with a lot of videos like this, it's very played up. It's a lot of overacting and just YouTubers being obnoxious, unlike me, of course. But these two seem genuine, which I like, and the stuff they pull out, pretty creepy. First of all, they state at the start of the video that the package was dropped off in their backyard by some guy in the middle of the night. Whoever it is doesn't look like a UPS worker or anything like that. Take a look. Word of advice, don't order anything from the dark web right to your home address. Just send it to like I don't know, a post office, pick it up there. Anyway, they pull out a stuffed animal, some letters addressed to someone named Michelle. There was also a framed photo of a random family. Seemed like these were items that belonged to someone else, because it would be very strange for someone to send a picture of their own family to a stranger online, although there's all sorts of people in the world, so who knows. They also pulled out a bag of socks, underwear, and hair. Most disturbingly though, they found a USB with footage that looked to be taken from outside of somebody's window. Alright, let's move on to number 7. This next video is uploaded to YouTube by Kira Bridget, and she seems to have done more than one of these unboxings, and I don't get why, if they are real anyway. This one, really gross. First she pulls out a used tissue, and all I could think watching this was she needs to invest in more gloves. She said she was just out, but yeah, she really should have waited till she had some, because she picked this stuff up with her bare hands, and that's the most disturbing part of the whole thing. There's a good chance she just assembled this box herself. There's a chance that's the case for all these videos, but yeah, if this is indeed real, then hey, you know what? I think it was money well spent. Next on the list, we have an unboxing from YouTuber Infinite. Now, he opens a couple boxes in this video, one of which actually has some pretty cool stuff I don't actually buy intentionally, but the first box he opens, again, if this is actually a package he got from some person online, it's pretty nasty. Again, he really should have been wearing gloves. Again, what's with these people not wearing gloves? I'd put a mask on too. Anyway, the first thing he pulls out, with his eyes closed, mind you, which is another mistake, is a bag containing something. Let's take a look. Yeah, it looks kind of like maybe a chicken breast to me with barbecue sauce, and even if that is what it is, still pretty gross to receive that in the mail. He proceeds to open the bag and give it a whiff. Third mistake, and even gets some of the mysterious juices on his fingers, which seems to be leaking from the bag. Ugh. At number 5, we have a video uploaded to YouTube by Jude Summers. Now, I'm pretty new to this dark web mystery box thing, and by that I mean I found out about this today, so I'm not sure if this is true, but he states at the start of the video that he hadn't seen anyone buy mystery boxes off the dark web before, so this could be the very first YouTuber to do it, or at least film themselves doing it anyway. There you go. We're watching history being made. Now, luckily, Jude starts off by putting on a pair of gloves, and it turns out he needed them, because the first thing he pulled out of the box was a package of wet wipes with a note reading, "You might need this." So there's gonna be some icky stuff in this box. He proceeds to pull out a few pretty innocuous items, but by far the weirdest and grossest thing he received was a strange, foul-smelling something. Take a look. Looks kind of like a rotten mushroom, maybe? I don't know, but I would not have pulled it out of the bag at all. Again, he should have just been wearing a mask. That thing just looks nasty. Number 4. This next video is uploaded by Juggling the Jenkins. Love that name. It was the day before Halloween, so Tiffany's husband purchased some mystery boxes for her to open on camera, and she got some absolutely lovely new dolls, some animal skulls, and a small little bottle of holy water. Good call. I mainly put this one on here because she's hilarious, and whether the boxes were sent by some creep or just someone having a laugh, it's pretty clear that Tiffany is genuinely surprised about what she's finding, which is far more entertaining than people overacting and playing stuff up for the camera. She pulls out a really disgusting looking doll, and her reaction is priceless. Gotta say, I'd probably have a similar reaction. In one box, she pulls out several taxidermy type items, some animal bones, and what looks to be some sort of shriveled up hand. This next video is brought to us by the YouTube channel Fanatic. And if this is real, it's absolutely insane. I don't know, it's pretty far-fetched, but their reactions seem pretty genuine, so you be the judge. So these guys bought a package off the dark web, and inside of it was what looked to be a burlap sack, and inside that sack was another box. So yeah, as they said, it looks like an ammo box, but what was contained inside of it was completely unexpected. It had a bunch of wet paper towels, and under that was a bag containing this. Yeah, it's just a lungfish in a bag. Now again, this whole thing can definitely be fake, but just looking at the reactions, it seems like they're genuinely surprised here, so who knows? I mean, how stuff like this gets across any borders? I mean, don't they check the packages? But anyway, I mean, it's still cool to see a lungfish pulled out of a box like that. I don't know. I was entertained by this video. At number 2, we have a TikToker named Masked Red. Masked Red, who happens to actually wear a black mask, opens tons of mystery boxes apparently bought off the dark web. He's received all kinds of stuff: watches, a water bottle full of hot dogs. Some of it's pretty mundane, while other boxes have contained more sinister items. Phone containing mysterious pictures. Take a look at this. And this box containing this absolutely nightmarish doll. Yeah, I don't like the look of that thing. No eyes, no mouth. Dolls are the worst. I don't know. Anyone ever seen someone who like collects dolls? I don't get it. If these are real boxes he's buying with Bitcoin on the deep web, he's got some money to spend too, because he's uploaded tons of these videos. And finally though, at number 1, we have what I'm just gonna call Backpack. This video is once again uploaded by Mindseed TV and is pretty well known in the dark web mystery box community, I guess. The creepiest part of this video is when they pull out a child's backpack. Very unsettling. This is one of those videos I really hope isn't real, or at least that the person who sent the package is just trying to creep people out. But contained within the bag was a pair of child-sized shorts and a sweater. Now, as icky and weird as that is, what's interesting about this video is that this is the first package Mindseed TV received from this seller, who he believes sent the unexpected package a year later that we discussed earlier in the video at number 9. And again, you know, whether this stuff is real or not, it does make for a pretty spooky series of videos, so give them a watch if you're interested.
Hey, check out this video next. It's about interesting creatures that we found in Chernobyl. These animals should not exist here, but yet they do, and we have many documented cases with these strange hybrid creatures. Click the video now to find out more.